Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and what I heard both of you say are a few things that I think are really powerful. One is this kind of the opportunity for social studies to build skills that translate past social studies. And I think often today we take our subjects and we have them be separate, but the cross-discipline part of the work here, where kids are writing, they're understanding about society, they're building these skills, study skills, learning skills, writing skills, just
Music.
perseverance, music. Like, there's a lot more that can happen with social studies than just learning about dates, which I think often is what social studies gets dwindled down to, is really dry topics on dates that don't, you don't see the connection. So I love hearing how multidisciplinary it is and how the kids have grown and learned. And I guess my final question would be, how do you hope to, as parents, to capitalize on what they learned here as they continue to progress as young adults in the world?
I mean, in our house, it's just ongoing discussion, and it's because we're sitting in the kitchen and NPR's on, and, my daughter said, "Did Robert Mueller talk yet?" So, I think that there's part of me that wanted to protect them from everything out there. But I think that I was too protected. I wasn't aware enough. So I feel like just keeping the conversation going, and the fact that, I mean, as DJ said, kind of that there can be this dialogue, between what's happening in school and what's happening in the world. I mean, she might come home and tell me that someone was not nice to someone because who knows. But then we say, oh, well, how do you think that made them feel? I mean, all the same questions that you might have asked about, this case, you can ask about their daily interactions. And I feel like that kind of flowing between the dynamics of the home, your home in the city, your city in your state in your country in your world, like that is a never ending conversation. And I just feel like this whole curriculum kind of set the stage for that. And in a way that, like, when we were growing up, current events really didn't, or social studies, those weren't, the level of engagement and the potential discourse never amounted to what it amounted just in this whole year's study. So I just think taking it back out there,
For me, my dad is blind. He went blind when he was 12. So I grew up with a blind dad who went to law school, who put 5 kids through college. And my wife her parents immigrated here when she was 3. I think we have a different take on the world because my North Star is a guy who can't read, can't play tennis, but can do every other thing. He can't read a book, but he can read it on tape. And for my wife, just seeing her parents have 4 jobs just to make it work. And luckily we are not in those situations now. And how do we yet give our kids the same perspective on life that we were raised with? Do I have to poke my eyes out? Like, what am I going to have to do? And
Right.
So for me, and I will say, just talking about teachers and how important teachers are. I remember in 6th grade, I went to a fair. It wasn't a school fair. It was off somewhere in town with my dad. And I'm holding hands with my dad, helping him get around. And I see my 6th grade teacher, and he is holding hands with a man. And I was thinking, oh my gosh, is that guy blind too? And I realized, no, he's not. And that was the first time someone I knew was gay, my 6th grade teacher. And to this day, that's the reason why I'm supportive and an ally of the community, because Mr. Gamboni was gay and I love Mr. Gamboni, so this is fine. And I think things like that, I talked to him recently because every time there's something that comes up where we do an LGBT issue on something I'm working on, I'm like, it's you, dude, it's you. And I think, like, at home now, when we play life and we get to the getting married with our kids, we go, are you marrying a man or a woman? And every time it's a question like, what's it going to be this time? And you said something earlier about how the way we're raising our kids versus the way the world is, there's a really big discrepancy sometimes. And I think in some ways it's going to be hard for them because when you leave the comfort of the community where everyone is accepting, what do you do with that injustice?
Awakening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I do think that the process of making this play and being aware that, no, these things that you take as a given weren't always a given, and sometimes now aren't a given.
they get ungiven.
Yeah.
That they're trying to in
Yeah.
Georgia. So like there's certain things where you go, how do we protect
Mhm.
and how do we know that we have to fight for the things that we might take for granted but could be taken away?
Absolutely.
Yeah. No, thank you both
Thank you guys so much.
This was wonderful.
We really appreciate
One
it.
other thing, and I don't know if Griffin felt it, Sylvie was so proud of California. Like she had real state love when she was so psyched that, California was doing that before Brown versus, that it preceded
Yeah.
the landmark case that
Yeah.
everyone talks about. And I even feel like in that little thing, it's like you can quietly do your thing and you don't need to, maybe you're not the case everyone knows about, but here
Yeah.
California charged on, and even that lesson, I think that you may not always get the credit, but
And hearing my 10-year-old son go back east, talk to my 85-year-old blind attorney dad about Brown v. Board and
it's
everything, it was
amazing.
incredible. It was
It's
amazing. Yeah.
That's great. That's so awesome. That's